No? Yes, yes, now. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Dear members of the panel, I'm extremely pleased to be here with you this afternoon and discuss the development of skills of researchers and the role that Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action can play. According to our current projections, the European Union will need to train and employ an estimated 1 million new researchers by 2027, which is, of course, a huge task. And so I'm very pleased to be here in the company of our distinguished members of the panel to discuss and hear their perspective, help us find the way forward and listen to all of you in our discussion session later on. Let me first say who I am, because you should know who is the moderator of this panel. My name is Vivian Hoffmann. I'm Deputy Director General for Education, Youth, Culture and Sport in the European Commission. Now, our panel members, Michaela Pudu is a former MSCA Fellow. She has won the 2019 Rising Women Innovator Prize. So, Michaela, you are extremely well placed to tell us about the impact of a fellowship on your career. Rob Smets is director at the Public-Private Partnerships of Philips, Philips Chief Technology Office. And he has been in charge of managing Philips' participation in over 20 innovative training networks. So you will give us the business perspective this afternoon. Ludovic Tilly is professor at the University of Poitiers and chair of the executive board of the Coimbra Group of Universities. You will address the issue from the point of view of universities. And I think we can all agree that the EU needs a strong, resilient and creative human resource base for research and innovation. And in other words, we need the right combination of skills to match the future needs of the labor market, to innovate, to convert ideas into product services and address key societal challenges. And there is where the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action can help meet this need and contributes to Europe's economic and social development and competitiveness. For over more than 20 years, MSCA have offered excellent and innovative training and helped researchers to find interesting career opportunities and ways to exchange knowledge. And this, of course, includes mobility of researchers across borders and sectors globally, and help prepare the researchers to tackle future and current societal challenges. You may know that since the start of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Action, more than 130,000 highly talented researchers have benefited from it. And it reaches further, of course. It also encourages organizations to improve the way they employ and train researchers. And one example of this is development of excellent doctoral programs which attract talent from Europe and from beyond. And indeed, when we compare the European Union to the United States, China, and Japan, we can see that a much smaller share of researchers in Europe are employed in the business sector. Crucially, around 45% of MSCA fellows benefit from some form of cross-sectoral mobility or exposure to non-academia. So this is good, but can we do more? Because this contributes to their ability, of course, to find jobs and decide on the best possible career path. And while many doctorate holders like to remain in academia, the reality is that there are insufficient positions to meet this demand. PhD candidates and researchers therefore need to be prepared to look for job opportunities outside academia, and the question is, are they sufficiently well prepared? I think that's one of the questions that we can address this afternoon. And also how MSCA can and must provide training to researchers to also enhance their transferable skills that they will make use of when moving beyond academia. And this includes critical thinking, entrepreneurial mindset, of course, effective communication skills, capability to capitalize on digital technologies or seize business opportunities. So these are among the challenges that we are going to address. Just a few words also about the future of MSCA under Horizon Europe as from 2021. Our intention is not to introduce too many changes. Nevertheless, we want to streamline some of the actions. We want to further simplify the rules. We, of course, want to improve synergies with other parts of Horizon Europe and other EU programs. And we would also like to boost the participation of the so-called widening countries so that we make sure that Europe fully benefits of all its talent pool. And so we are currently exploring how we can bring these improvements to the implementation of the program, and also how we can better manage the very high demand for MSCA fellowships. We also want to make the international cooperation more strategic. Furthermore, we would like to also continue spreading the high standards that MSCA follows and the best practices that have emerged to host organizations. And of course, I'm referring here to the European Charter and the Code for Researchers, and it covers issues such as open recruitment and good working conditions. Because we believe that devoting time and energy to successfully participate in MSCA is really an investment in the future, and this concerns the participants and of course, the institutions. Now, we will have this afternoon, this session, the opportunity to reflect on the various aspects that also relate to the implementation, and we are very keen to listen to you and take your insights back home when we continue reflecting about what the best features would be in the new implementation phase. So the main questions that we are going to address in these sessions are indeed what skills are needed for Europe to remain competitive, where is Europe performing well, where is it lagging behind in terms of skills development, and how can MSCA make its contribution to that discussion and to these needs. So I think I would like to open the floor now, but first of all, I would like to ask our members of the panel a few questions, starting with you, Michaela. You have been involved in MSCA directly as a fellow from your very personal experience. How do you see the impact of the program on a researcher's career? And also more broadly, do you think that researchers are these days well equipped with the right skills for the labor market? And obviously, is there anything that MSCA can contribute to this?
Sure. Can you hear me first of all? Is it on?
Yeah.
So, for me, it has been a very positive experience. So my PhD has been funded by the Initial Training Network and gave me, first of all, the chance to relocate myself in Switzerland, where I still live, to also experience a secondment in UK, so also different culture, different setup, to perform and conclude very successfully my PhD, which led to various publications, a patent, and finally the starting of a company. So the company that I'm currently leading and which is commercializing the technology developed during this PhD. So from my perspective, it's been absolutely a positive experience, and for sure the strength of this program are the mobility aspect, the opportunity to experience different setups, and so the academic life, but also the startup environment, as has been in my case. And also the chance to get some extra training to prepare indeed for the future career. And I mean, I've seen that most of the students or researchers that receive such support are absolutely skilled and prepared for future job, be it in academia or in the industry. But then obviously the transition from academia to working in a company requires the acquisition of a new set of skills, a new language. And that's obviously something that is, is a step to be done anyways. And if you want to become an entrepreneur, it still goes farther. So there you require even an extra drive, extra skills. Some are maybe personality dependent, but some can be acquired for sure. And maybe there something more could be done, because I have to say I've rarely seen someone that freshly graduated was able to effectively pitch his solution, his rare idea to a crowd of investors or industrial partners. So.
Thank you for sharing this. Now maybe to Rob, you have run many innovative training network projects. So from your perspective, how do you see the impact of MSCA on the cooperation between business and academia? And I would also like to ask the question again from your perspective, do you think that the researchers are adequately equipped with the right skills for the labor market? And then also, because you've been working a lot on this, how can we encourage more business participation and provide the fellows with this non-academic experience?
Okay, thank you. Quite some questions already to tackle. First, let me explain. Philips is not an average company. You have SMEs, you have R&D intensive companies, you have manufacturing companies. There's quite a difference, and I'm representing an R&D intensive company, which means that we'll have a different point of view than many other entrepreneurs or companies you'll talk to. And that might be one of the challenges also for your first question, industry, academia, collaboration, because much depends on the things you mentioned, the language, the way that people look at and value science and research. In our organization, there's 1,000 researchers working on healthcare technologies in the wider sense, and the majority of them have their PhD themselves. That's how they entered our research organization, so they sort of have that same language. We'll come back to it later, because I think it's an important thing. And that makes it easier for them to communicate with universities, talk about the same language, but also to supervise young fellows, young early stage researchers. That's not obvious for every company, so you might have to have a bigger gap to cross if you want to do that collaboration between industry and academia. But even if you look at a different type of company, if they're willing to get to know universities, then the Marie Curie scheme might be a good way of doing that, because hiring a PhD as a in the labor force of your company requires you to dig into that world from our perspective, from an industry perspective, and also the other way around, from the university, to start talking the language, to understand that it's not always 10 years ahead or even 5 years ahead, it might be 3 years ahead. So the things you describe in your industry training, in your network, they're far on the horizon of a company, but it challenges industry also to look ahead for that and to learn from the universities. So I think that's an important benefit that any sort of R&D collaboration in Europe can create, to understand that mutual language and get to know each other and the way we talk, and we talk about research and we talk about science. So I think that's important. For the second question, what would you expect then from Marie Curie fellows, early stage researchers or experienced researchers? I think I would expect from our perspective that they bring in the new skills of the born digital generation. If we talk about young researchers, early stage researchers, they were born 20 years ago, 25 years ago, so they have skills. No matter what type of education they have skills of dealing with IT, dealing with digital science. And whatever the topic of their research would be, I would expect that part to be in there. And that's also a request and a claim to the future of Marie Curie. Make sure that always the digital aspect is brought into the projects. It can be biomolecular projects, it can be manufacturing projects, it can be energy efficiency projects, but there's always a digital aspect to it. I think that's really important to emphasize. With that, I forgot your third question, but we might come back to it later.
Thank you. Already a lot of food for thought. Ludovic, you are a representative of many universities, and you have hosted MSc fellows. So what can you tell us about the sort of more structural effect that the program has on the institutions in terms of employing researchers? And do you think that this has led actually to an improvement of the skills? And then also, do you think that, I mean, or rather how could we induce further, more structural changes in academia?
As you said, I'm trying to represent 39 education and research-led universities, and they are indeed, I would say, massive clients of the MSCAs, and hosting, as you said, the diversity of programs under these actions. If I just look already at what each actions bring, I think that it already tells about what are the added value and the skills that we can really grab from this at the university level. For instance, if you look at the ITNs, well, these are networks that will train young researchers to really cutting-edge topics or techniques, and this is associated with the development of new doctoral training network and schemes. So that already is interesting for the universities. It really allows to move forward in the way we train the doctoral students. So that already in itself is interesting. If we look at the individual fellowship, this provides the possibility to have international exposure to our best young researchers, the postdocs, I will call them the postdocs. So that also is very important in the global internationalization process of the higher education system. And if I look into the third scheme, which is the RISE, so mostly for staff exchange, it also provides international experience and intersectoral experience. And that also is very important, especially in a world where usually you have a tendency to recruit to academia only academics and maybe in industry more people coming only from industry. So this mix is absolutely important to better understand each other and for the future cooperation as well. So basically what works really well is the flexible funding that is provided, that works well, the intersectoral mobility, and also what I didn't mention is this opportunity to restart a career in one of the different aspects. The problem, I think, is that these are usually short-term effects. That is, it's not always the case, but on many occasions, all these, for instance, I just look at the ITNs, all these very innovative doctoral trainings, they have a tendency to disappear once the project stops. And that actually, unfortunately, is a problem also with other programs like Erasmus project, where a lot of capacity buildings projects are also very, very innovative, but when the money is finished, then it disappears. So, and that actually means that from the university management viewpoint, there should be a political will to really grab these opportunities to embed or to transfer these innovation trainings into the normal, to mainstream them into the normal training of the universities. And that is not yet always the case. So there is, in a way, there is a great waste of very good ideas and only short term. And there, maybe a solution could be to really use the great leverage that brings the European Charter for Researchers and the label that goes with it. Because there is indeed then a sort of obligation to provide the best conditions for the doctoral students and for the postdocs to get trained and to get a really completely comprehensive career development approach. So that could be a way to maybe improve this. If I may add, there is still an issue with what we call the permadoc, that is the use of MSCAs to just giving a contract and another contract, and it's a sort of never-ending process. And that's not just bad for a group that has this sort of strategy, but also for the people behind, because they basically suffer from these just ongoing short-term periods of contracts and with no clear progress in their career. And that's indeed something to solve. What is also what has to be improved is the exposure to transversal skills. And that goes also with what you mentioned, that is also to be trained on communication, on critical thinking, but also what is in front of us. This morning there was this very important session on open science. That is supposed to become the normal. But we need to train the young generation, and that should be embedded in these actions. And also, just to touch upon in a few words, we should also consider the mental health of the young researchers, because they are in a period of their careers that is absolutely stressful. How can we accompany them? So it's not really a skill development, but actually it's a sort of well-being, which is absolutely necessary to become a good researcher, I believe.
Thank you very much for this also very thought-provoking introduction. I think we can now open the floor. We'll have 40 minutes. So that should hopefully allow many of you to discuss, ask questions, interact with our members of the panel here. So I'll open the floor straight away, and I think we have a microphone, of course. I try to see everybody, so. Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, Claire told me very helpfully. It would be of benefit, I think, for everybody, if you don't mind, to just introduce yourself very briefly so that we can better understand also from which perspective you may want to comment. Thank you.
And to stand up so the panel can see you.
Okay, my name is Martina Hadler. I'm from the Austrian Ministry of Science and Research, and I'm also the Austrian MSCA delegate. And I have two very short questions. One is from your individual point of view or organizational point of view, if you could change one thing in the MSCA activity that you are using, what would you like to see changed because you think it's the biggest problem? And the second one is, we have heard a lot in the new framework program about mission orientation, also about the SDGs. And the question is, can we afford that MSCA only stays bottom-up, or do we also have to align a mission orientation and the skills needed for tackling the SDGs and tackling huge societal problems with also advancing the respective skills? Meaning, do we have to target specific measures for MSCA as well? Thank you.
Would like to answer?
Well, maybe.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Well, if actually, because I realized I forgot to mention one point, and your first question was about, indeed, what could we change? So it's a purely technical aspect, let me say. I was actually looking at the institutional unit costs, so it's really practical. Regarding training, so basically what the institutions also receive as a sort of accompanying money to provide the appropriate training to the different MSCA fellows. When you look at the ITNs, it's 1,800. Same for the RISE, and for the individual fellowship, unless I'm wrong, it's only 800. And I was really surprised, because shouldn't it be them, the postdocs, who should be mostly accompanied for the training? So why this difference? So first answer would be, I would put the same level in the training unit cost for all the three schemes. And then on your question about, what was the second question, sorry?
Bottom-up mission.
Yes. Actually, I must say that in the Coimbra group, we have different working groups dealing with, let's say, what is important here regarding the MSCA. But if I just report on the debate about what you exactly pointed out in the doctoral studies working group. There is actually no consensus. And myself, I must say, I don't really know, because it has been, it has proved that this bottom-up approach for the MSCA has been very successful, just like the ERCs. This is really how you can really find the best champions in this field. But on the other side, indeed, we have a sort of commitment to the society now that we need to all together to solve these big challenges. So I don't know what to respond. Not easy.
Yes, please.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think it's nice questions. What's to change? First, what's to keep? That's the good reputation of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Fellowships. I had a discussion this morning, and it's a sort of a brand which many people know. And the fact that the name is not challenged means that that's a good thing. I think that's also the basis towards Horizon Europe. Let's keep the things that work well, and ask for more money. That's the thing. But then again, I would say there's a lot of distribution of that limited amount of money over different parts. So stop the level of distribution and put it to the things that are most successful. You can measure that by oversubscription. Yes, we all hate oversubscription, but we cannot help it unless we all stop submitting proposals. That's the only thing that reduces oversubscriptions. You can come up with some rules, but I think this is the main thing. So what's to change? I would say give all the money to European industry doctorates, because that encourages the collaboration with industry. But my main recommendation was don't change too much and focus. Should it remain bottom-up? Yes, it should.
Thank you. So we have a question here. Oh, sorry.
Something about,
Sorry.
Maybe besides what I said before on what I would add, so the training, especially for who plan to start an entrepreneurial career and bring forward the innovation and convert it into marketable product and service. Besides that, I would add that maybe what I've experienced as missing is dissemination, so support from the program in disseminating the ideas, the solutions that are being developed. Because I believe that if we want some of these solutions to effectively solve the challenges we are facing, also non-scientific public should know about these solutions. And I think there some work could be done in helping researchers in not only explaining with a language that is understandable from the larger crowd what they're working on, but also in spreading it through official channels. Mm-hmm. That I think
very good point. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Mechtil Baumann. After 20 years in European project management and research, I changed to consultancy, which is what I do right now. I liked your question about the mission, and my question goes in a similar direction. Marie Curie was always bottom-up, and it's getting more and more application-oriented. And now when we talk about innovation, labor market fit, skills and needs, my question is, what about fundamental research, and what will be its role under Horizon Europe? It also addresses you, madam.
Yes. Well, this afternoon I'm here as a moderator. The question should be, if you can, designed in a way that our panelists are the best placed persons to answer them, and I will not now enter into the discussion because it will take away speaking time from the panelists. So we can also do that separately if you want, but can we focus on the panelists? Yes?
I can start.
Yeah.
So I believe basic research should continue to exist because, it has been proven to solve problems that were not even, in some cases, they were not even born to be the solution to a specific problem, but it was just found later on. So this for sure should continue to exist, but if funding has to go to support the development of a solution to a specific problem, and I believe that's in the direction we are going. So if we want innovation to fit a specific purpose, then I think there should be a lot more synergy and interaction with the reality of the problem that researchers are solving, so become more and more an applied approach. and this synergy should consist in really understanding early on in the researcher career what are the exact needs of that problem that they are solving. So if it's an industrial problem or a social or environmental problem, really get close to the problem, talk to the people or the organization that are involved, and understand really early on what are the issues to be solved. In order to get to a solution that is fitting exactly the needs, and eventually is also scalable and cost-effective. Otherwise, we risk to use a lot of money or a lot of funding for something that doesn't even fit the purpose. So,
Thank you.
If I may.
Yes, of course.
But actually, the whole innovation process, as you know, is a chain. It's a pipeline. So basically, I don't think that we can consider that innovation can happen if we just cut everything related to basic research. That's very. If you look at the knowledge, people were usually using this name knowledge triangle. And this morning at the universities in the ecosystems session, Jean Chambaz nicely said that actually it's not a triangle, it's a square. You have education, research, innovation, and service to the society. And these actually more or less are the parts, the segments of the innovation pipeline, because in the end, the target is indeed to serve the society and all the challenges that we were mentioning. So basically, if the first steps that are based on basic research are just cut, well, the whole thing just crumbles. So to me, that's why indeed the pillar one of Horizon 2020 and then Horizon Europe is so important, and also the budget that goes to it. And indeed, well, I will not comment again, but what's currently under development is not such a good sign, because if we cut down all this budget as well, then the whole chain will just have big issues.
Thank you. Julie? Yes, sorry.
Yes. Hello, my name is Susanne. I'm a Marie Curie Global Fellow since last month. So, thank you. I was missing a bit the part of the global fellowships in your discussion, because I think it's a challenge and it's also exciting. Maybe you can comment a bit on the challenge of integrating different research environments. Myself, I'm working in Birmingham and in Brazil, in Sao Paulo. So working across two very different cultural and also research cultures, languages. How are fellows being prepared for that or supported in this? And also, how can we use the experiences in the global fellowships to strengthen research networks in the future? So what happens after? Because I think, like you said, I mean, often we have great projects, then the money is gone. What happens afterwards? So how can Marie Curie, I mean, any fellowship prepare us for what's coming next? So where are we headed? Is there like a kind of perspective what's coming after? And how can we use these networks that we're creating and build on that? Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we group? Yes, maybe we group some of the questions. That's a good idea.
So I'm Martijn de Neding. I'm a fifth-year medical student at KU Leuven. And I am a former chair of the Student Organization for Student Research in Leuven. And what we do is we facilitate short internships of up to 1 to 2 months, which can also be extended during the academic year for taking part in a scientific research. So it can either be like your own project if you've come up with a new idea, or you can work together with postdocs, doctorates on an existing project. And what my question is we are trying to expand also the projects we offer to other European universities. Currently, we're trying to establish a collaboration with Leiden in the Netherlands. But we would also like to work together with other universities. And yesterday I also spoke to some policy officers from the department that's about Marie Curie fellowship. And I was also thinking maybe there is some place in a Marie Curie program for this kind of student research internship, especially because if I take myself as an example, I'm a medical student that's barely exposed to real basic research. Most of my colleagues in medicine don't know anything about basic research, and I think it's really important that people from all life sciences, so we organize these internships for all life sciences faculties, that everyone has the opportunity to participate in science and also acquire skills that would not be learned in the normal curriculum. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to hear your thoughts about that.
Thank you for raising these questions.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting thoughts. And I can see the similarity between both questions. How can you support us in getting into another environment, whether it's a cultural environment from two continents, whether it's basic research versus applied research. Let me translate it also, industry versus an industry environment versus an academic environment. I think much of it, and that I would also expect that to be expected of young researchers, is to be open to it and throw yourself into it. That's one thing. So what you're doing is really good, going abroad to another continent. Within Europe, you have the same things. I mean, you might probably comment on it. If you go from one country in Europe to another one, the culture around you is different. And that's part of the experience. That's part of the mobility that's so important to this program, because it exposes you to different cultures, environments. What you're doing in Leuven to take that internationally is also very good. The thing in itself, going as a medical school to basic research and getting a feeling of what it is really important for your future, to develop yourself into a multidisciplinary person. You don't have to be good at everything. You have your own specialty, but then you've experienced in your early research career what else there is. And I think that is good that it's there. I think Marie Curie in itself offers the opportunity. Much of it will depend on yourself, how you deal with it. If your question is how can you further support us, I will look at Viviana and see what her answer is. But I think in itself it's good. And if you are the type that is going to go for such a fellowship, then you already have this openness to other cultures and other skills.
Thank you. Michaela, and then...
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would continue on what he says, that for sure having the chance to experience a bit of everything give you the opportunity to understand early on what you want to do, and therefore early on build on that and develop yourself in that direction. And with regards with what you said, I'm not sure I would provide support for that, because I believe the moment you enroll in such a program, as you said, you should be ready and open to experience this cultural difference and then actually enjoy them. That's what I did. And I mean, of course, it's, at times can be tough, but I mean, it's the best part of it, I believe. So I wouldn't say that you would need support for that. You should just enjoy it and get the most out of it.
Yeah, I would like to comment, because what you are doing is actually absolutely a great initiative. But I think maybe to mainstream it would be, for instance, to allow that the MSCA projects would include that a fellow would have under his guidance some traineeships and would cover the trainee fee, let's say, for not just for a monthly fee, but also for providing this opportunity to do also research. So basically, a sort of a small research grant for helping the young ones, and that would actually also increase the skills of the fellow, of the MSCF fellow, because that would provide him some training skills, some that can be used either for his future academics career. Because then if he can show that during his MSCA experience he was indeed guiding students, but also then if he moves more to the industry side, he would have already some management skills. So that, I think, would be absolutely interesting to increase the skills of the MSCA fellows.
Thank you. I think we have more questions. Yes?
Hello, my name's Rhonda Smith from my company's Minerva. We're based in the UK. We've worked with a number of Marie Curie projects now. We're subcontracted to deliver transversal or complementary skills training for Marie Curie projects. And one of the things that we've come up against, and certainly had feedback from the ESRs, is that sometimes it's often their supervisors who actually put a little bit of a damper on the time that they need to develop their skills in these other areas other than their scientific training. So my question is this simply a generational thing, i.e. when we've got other people coming through who become supervisors, that actually they will see how important it is to give the ESRs the time to actually get involved in more outreach, more communications, more doing the things that we've just been talking about, rather than solely focusing on their scientific and the generation of their peer-reviewed papers.
And what do you think of this?
Well, I think I pleaded for that too, that the transversal skills should be a large part of the training that they follow, absolutely. Otherwise, it's only a research-focused project, and then when it's finished, what's next?
What would be the challenges, the obstacles? How do you see the situation? What are the developments according to your experiences?
Well, at university, this type of training is available. Especially if you look at comprehensive universities, they have all the portfolio of training. So it's just a matter of letting or allowing these fellows to follow these courses, I guess, to accept.
It's more about putting that training into practice.
Yes.
And we often find that time is either denied because I want you back in the field, I want you back at the lab bench, where's the first draft of that next paper? And it's we get this feedback all the time. We do really good training, lots of enthusiasm, wanting to do this, but actually not being able to.
I completely agree. As a PhD supervisor, I usually push my students to do now these famous 3-minute thesis competitions. But most of my colleagues just don't want, because it will actually remove the students from their lab, and they will have to spend time in deep preparing. But I think it's a bad calculation. It's a bad approach, because what they gain here will be actually so crucial for their defense. Just to be very practical, not even speaking about their future career. But I can tell you that the ones who did the 3-minute thesis competition and the ones who did not, there is a clear difference when they defend their PhD, clearly. So I agree. Oh, yes. But that we can't say.
I mean, she was asking also if we think that would change. And I don't think that would change, because I think it's very much dependent on the supervisor and on the specific university. And I mean, if the supervisor, the professor is at the moment very under pressure to have as much publication as possible, because that's how success is measured in academia, and that's how sometimes their permanent position is then secure, then it's understandable how you get into that situation. So maybe the easiest way would be just to fix a number of mandatory amount of hours for the PhD student to do other things, and then that rule would have to be followed by everyone.
But I have to say that I also hear the other way around. I hear our PhDs saying, you throw so much at us, so much training, there's so much we need to do, that there's so little time left to work on our research work. And I'm sometimes challenged, I am challenged, saying, why do I have to put all it in? Well, you want to have your proposal funded, don't you? So you have to come up with something creative. The PhDs have to do some of the dissemination themselves. And all these things add up to what I call a good proposal, what sometimes the evaluators call a good proposal, so it gets funded. And then these poor young PhDs come in and they say, where's my time to work? So it's a balance, and we're building a lovely Christmas tree with a lot of balls and lights in there to be the shiny ones and to be selected for funding. and then sometimes the balance is gone. I'm happy to hear the other story as well. Am I happy? But at least happy to see that it is a balance, that you can go one way, which is not good, and the other way. So finding the balance is crucial. But also in the proposal stage, I would say, let's also put that in there, that this balance of what is feasible in doing your research and getting your PhD in 3 or 4 years and getting these transversal skills in, that balance is okay, and that it's not just the most shiny tree, but the most beautiful tree, I would say.
Thank you for looking at the different angles of this very important question indeed. Please.
I think my point was just made because I was thinking all of the aspects that have been said are important, and the fellowships are not that long. So my question would be, should they be longer so that the fellows actually can acquire all the skills that we want them to acquire during their proposal? So, but I think you addressed it already a bit.
Thank you. Would you like to add something? Or was it all said? Okay, let's maybe, thank you. Move on to your question.
Yes, my name is Ellen Schenk. I'm from the Erasmus University Medical Center in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. Experience in managing ITNs. I have one comment or answer maybe to Dr. Tilly about the difference in institutional allowance for research and training. In an ITN, there's a large part of the budget going to consortium-wide training events, etc., which doesn't occur in an individual fellowship, so probably that makes a difference. One addition to the medical students training, is that where we can find the synergy with Erasmus+? So that's a question. And I have a question for Rob, and that relates to being a company in an ITN training program. How difficult is it for Philips to get a PhD degree for your ESRs? And on top of that, in your experience, do you think that SMEs are struggling with participating in ITNs specifically because are they able to deliver a PhD degree to their ESRs?
Thank you. Who wants to answer?
I think the question was to you, right?
Yeah, I was waiting for the first part, but those are comments. Now, in that sense, I can answer how hard or easy it is. We participate in training networks. We usually have one PhD that comes and works with Philips, and then does his or her PhD in one of the universities, sometimes a Dutch one, sometimes a foreign one. And it requires alignment between our supervisors and the scientific supervisors. I referred back to where I started. Maybe Philips is a non-typical company where we have our supervisors are doctors themselves, so they speak the language, they have their contacts. That makes it easier. Philips has, in research, a longer-term vision. So 4 years, yes, it's long, but it's still within our time frame. If you compare that to an SME, it will be quite different. They don't have that time frame. Yes, they want. In the vision they do, but in reality there's other deadlines that come first. So that supervisor should be really strong to say, I can balance the pressure of every day and every quarter or every year at least with the 4-year foresight. And the questions from management to him or her will be, what will this student do afterwards? We will hire him, right? And what will he or she do then? So the questions will be different, so it might be harder also to do that. But I think then again, if we look at industry participation in the Marie Curie program, that there's different flavors. So this was the example where you're a beneficiary. You can also look at parts where you have, as a partner organization, an SME could be partner organization in a training network, and say, I'll have a secondment for the more psychology-related PhD for 3 months, and then I'll have one from industrial engineering for 4 months, and we'll give them the practical training just on the work floor to have that different feeling of what's out there without providing the scientific basis, but just this bit of experience. And meanwhile, the SME can benefit from the knowledge that these different young researchers bring in. So I think there's different participation for different types of industry organizations. And bottom line, every PhD should do the promotion with the university. So in the end, that alignment should be well taken care of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
we have more questions? Maybe in the meantime, we can also mention to you what is going on next door. Maybe Claire, you want to do that, Claire? You know Claire Morel? Claire Morel is the head of unit, head of the team in the European Commission in charge of Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, in case you don't know her. And maybe Claire, you will say what else you could look at next door.
No, I just wanted to say that, yes, that tomorrow, since we are talking about outreach, about communication, about the communication skills for young researchers, tomorrow we have a session in the afternoon where the young researchers, it's called the Falling Wall Lab, from 1:30 to 4:30. We have the program here, although we're not supposed to be distributing papers, but we have the short program, which where you can come and see the young researchers presenting the results of their research in 3 minutes. It's called Falling Wall Lab, and they need a lot of, I think, encouragement. And if you have time tomorrow afternoon, we would be very grateful, and it will be quite interesting. So we hope you can make it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Claire. Let's just check if there are more questions. I don't see any for the moment, so maybe I can ask our panelists to say what their take is on this exchange, what else you would like to say about the future of MSCA, and anything else I think that you would want to give us as your insights also on skills development and the other issues we discussed this afternoon.
Or ask questions to the audience? Is that possible as well?
Of course it is.
Okay, because I think one of the things that came, you mentioned that 40% of the PhDs benefit from collaboration with non-academic partners. That doesn't have to be industry, that can be hospitals, it can be government organizations. And I think in a recent meeting we had like this, it was mentioned that 80% of all young researchers don't end up with a scientific career, because the funnel is steep, so you start with a lot of young researchers doing their PhD, but only a few of them can end up as a professor. That means that if only 20% does that career, and assuming that many of the audience are representing universities, that 80% is going to go elsewhere. And do you keep track of where they are going? Do you know what professions they will choose, if not the scientific career? Some of them will stay within the university and find a staff role or another role, but many of them will go to companies, to governments. And for me, that was an important figure, and I was triggered and also surprised by the high level of young researchers that do their PhD and eventually don't end up. And I understand why, but these are really good people. So they're the ones that we are interested in as well. And I think in terms of the scholarships and the fellowships in Marie Curie, it's important to offer those skills. So, but let me phrase it as a question and then see who wants to respond to it. Do you keep track of that? And how do you support the young researchers, with or without a fellowship from Marie Curie, in finding their career opportunities outside the scientific career in the universities?
Who would offer any view on this interesting question?
Like in the dark field in the room.
I can comment, because universities usually do that exercise of staying in contact with the former PhD students and the postdocs. It can be either done at the level of the former supervisors who would need that information for their own career development. I don't know how it is in all the different countries, but I can tell you that in France, for instance, in your own career development, you need to show what happened to your previous PhD students and postdocs. So there is a sort of a commitment also that you at least show that you delivered in a way people who are now really included in the society in one way or another, and not just disappeared and maybe are not even related anymore to what they were doing at that time. So usually universities do it. So we have some numbers. And then maybe coming back to your point, I think that again, this capacity to provide these transversal skills keeping in mind all indeed what you said about indeed we should not put too much of this. There is a good balance to find, because otherwise it would come to my last point, which was the mental health of these fellows. That is absolutely, on average, not in a good shape, I should say. This is a hot topic currently at universities that we need to address. And how to, this is not only for the young researchers, but in particular, they are particularly exposed to these problems because of the conditions of these short-term contracts that they are engaged in. And so indeed, we should find this very good balance. But these are, let's say, good skills for them too. It's not just to tick boxes. It is because because exactly also on what you said, that maybe only 20% of them will remain in the academics fields. We need to provide them with the right skills, and among them, it's not just about doing, I don't know, electron microscopy. If I look at my field, you need also to communicate. You need to show that you have critical thinking and you can solve problems. And these are non-discipline related skills. So that's in the duty of the supervisors to provide this on a day-to-day basis, just the training by research. But there are experts also, and we should then just let the experts do the right things and not believe that as a supervisor we can teach them everything, like communicate and so on.
Thank you very much. Michaela. Sorry.
Hello, this is Noria from the Catalan Institute of Neuroscience and Nanotechnology. Just to add something, as far as I heard, in some panels on the ERC grants, some candidates were requested about this question. Where are your PhD students now? What are they doing? And this is considered as a quality indicator on the group leader or on the principal investigator on giving good positions on the career of their PhD. So I think this is something that is almost on the air.
Thank you very much. I think we would have, unless there are more questions. No. I think we have a few minutes for each of you, if you want, to make a short concluding statement, of course, concluding between inverted commas, of course. This discussion will go on, and there's another comment. Maybe briefly? Yeah.
I would just like to make an addition. If there are any people from universities that would like to cooperate for the student research programs, currently I told you we're working with Leiden, but we'd also like other universities to maybe join in. So maybe you can, someone can ask me.
I will
after.
Thank you. Thank you. So, thank everybody. Thank you for the very good discussion we had, and indeed we will bring a lot of it back home and feed it into our further reflections. But I will leave you now the last words. Michaela, you want to?
I would like to add some remarks. I think something we haven't discussed about is the time pressure due to the particular historical moment we are in. So I think some of the challenges that technology has to solve, or at least has to be part of the solution, requires some speed. So some of the problems like climate related issues and catastrophes that comes with it, the time frame is not that long anymore, and I think that follows all we have discussed before, or that I said before, that I think if you really want to tackle these challenges, then the development has to be more focused. So that comes with screening project in a more severe way, I think. very early on, and then follow this project and support those projects in a way that they are going to become they're actually going to be implemented, and that goes with ensuring that this project will be known by governmental bodies or private sector, and are going to find funding after this funding is completed. Otherwise, there's going to be an issue with the timing issue. So these solutions are going to arrive too late, and then it's all going to be for nothing. So I think this time pressure is something that's a little bit peculiar of this new phase of the horizon that was not present in the previous years, and one should not underestimate.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much. Rob?
Yeah, then let me link into that for my final comment. Let's see this group of Marie Curie Fellows as the representative of a bright young generation of researchers, and only a limited share of them can get a international mobility grant. So that's the crème de la crème. But we're depending on our young generation for the future, and things evolve more quickly than they did in the past, or the societal challenges are getting more urgent. And we should move faster. I think the biggest move we can make with the young researchers is the digital element of it. Bring digital in the education. Everything will be based on artificial intelligence in 10 years from now. Now we're talking about it here. In 10 years from now, it should be on the work floors, in universities, in industry, in the environmental business, everywhere. So whatever you do, from fundamental research to applied research, make sure digital is in there, and that we bring the skills of the gaming youth into the working mode once they are 10 years older, and that we make sure that we facilitate that with European programs.
Another big topic. Thank you so much. Ludovic?
Well, I think... Yes? So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think we are really at the crossroads because there are currently, let's say, colliding principles. Just looking from the MSCA viewpoint, we have seen this question between purely bottom-up, or should that respond to the missions or the UN SDGs. But also we have in front of us something which I believe, from my personal opinion, will be a complete game changer, which is the open science. Where, and I would like to quote what has been said this morning at this open science is the normal. One of the panel member mentioned that actually the how did he say, the traditional researchers, so I'm among them, I guess, were indeed not so ready for that big jump. But the young generation of researchers were probably ready because they were grown in this digital world and so on. But I think that we should not forget also what has been working very well in the past. That is integrity, the ethics, that are also things which we did not mention in this discussion, that should the young generation should still be trained on those things. Otherwise, well, we know that especially in the digital world, it can go in all directions, with the good and the bad. So, which means that we should be careful because in front of us there are big revolutions. And we should not just consider that all what is new is bright and wonderful. There are principles also that have been proved to be robust. And all these transversal skills, the integrity and the ethics are also very, very important.
I think these are very good words to conclude with. Thank you so much. Thank you, participants. Thank you, our team from the Commission who has organized this. And thank you, dear members of the panel. It was a real pleasure. And again, we will make good use of all this insight. Thanks a lot.